self-serving, persuasive talkers
of everything and nothing.
We are Conversation Con Artists. What's going on, people? It's your boy, Mr. On Point.
And I am so envious right now that I'm not in the UK.
Also known as Conversation Con Artists, back for another fantastic episode. We have a special guest with us. If you would like to introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, yeah. So I'm Michael from the UK. Finally on the show, it feels like.
So excited
because we've been boosting up that idea for some time now.
We have.
Yeah, I finally got around to it,
and I'm glad that we finally got an opportunity to get you on the show. So we're just gonna progress with the show as normal, and Michael is just going to be a part of the show today. Everything we do, he's gonna do it with us. So let's start with the listener letter. What you got?
Okay, so if you have a question you would like for us to send to answer on the show, you can send it to our Gmail account, which is conversationconartists@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Conversation Con Artists, and send it to us that way. The first letter that we have is from Nikki. Nikki says, "Hey y'all, I'm adopting my first dog from the animal shelter on Friday. She's a Jack Russell Terrier and Chihuahua mix. Do you all have any advice or tips on owning a dog? Red, I know you have 2 dogs. I don't think Mr. On Point does, but I welcome his hilarious commentary. Thanks, Nikki." And then she sent a part 2 with a picture of the dog. Her name is Honey, and she's 2.5 years old. And she just wanted to know tips for owning a dog as being single, which, girl, listen, it's it's a lot harder, but I have 2 dogs, so getting them on a consistent schedule is the most important thing. That would be the first thing I would tell anybody, is that you have to get them on a consistent schedule. So taking them out at the same time. And so what I always do is I work around what my work schedule is. So the schedule that I set up is a schedule that works with my work schedule. With Honey being 2.5 years old, I always had puppies, which is stupid. Don't ever do that. I will never get another puppy after this last one. But with an older dog, it'll be a little bit easier as far as they won't have to go to the bathroom as often. But I also stick to that schedule on the weekend. So, like, I don't deviate from the schedule just because it's the weekend and I can sleep in. And we get up at the same time like I'm going to work and take them out. So, that would be my number one, is making sure you have a consistent schedule. I know you have. On Point has had a dog, and it was amazing. As far as, like, tell what you did the day of
I was heavy on training, okay? All it takes is 30 minutes a day of training until your dog picks it up and they'll pick up whatever it is. I use treats for training. But I trained my dog to ring a bell when she wanted to go outside to use the bathroom.
Fucking
yeah. The thing is, you become a slave to the bell. So when the bell rings, you gotta move, or you finna get pee on the floor. Do you have any pets or anything, Michael, or have you ever had any pets?
I can't really speak to it because the only pets I've ever had has been fish when I was a little kid, and that's a whole different thing. But yeah, and also I've never really been single, so nothing has ever been solely my responsibility, pretty much. That said, I am one of those people that really, really loves dogs, and I really love when people bring their dogs around. And the most annoying thing is if someone is not training their dog properly. So I do appreciate what you were saying there, Mr. On Point, about actually getting that stuff under control, because for me, badly behaved dogs are actually slightly worse than badly behaved children, almost,
They can hurt you more than a badly behaved child can. Not jumping up on people is one of the things that you need to get under control really quickly. Socializing them, again, with the dog being 2.5, she may or may not have some socialization already, but like if you're I live in an apartment, so I don't really take the older dog because he's an asshole to the park, and he's an asshole to other dogs, so he doesn't really get to go. But the younger dog loves to go to dog parks, and if you're gonna be taking her to a dog park, she needs to have some socialization and be around other dogs. To do that, I would suggest going to the dog park on a day when there's not going to be a lot of people there. obviously the weekend is a terrible time to go because everybody takes their dog to the dog park. But if she doesn't have, and that's just if you're planning. Now, if you're not planning on ever taking her to the dog park and you're not planning on getting a second dog, socializing her around other dogs may not be important, but she definitely needs to be socialized around other people because there's vet visits. There are going to be people that come over to your home. And so she needs to know the proper way to behave around other humans that are not you. Because as the owner, you're going to allow a lot more stuff with you than you're going to want for like the people coming visiting your house. So training is very important. Schedules are very important, especially being single and by yourself. It just makes everything so much easier if you have a schedule for the dog. I don't know. What else would I say?
I'm gonna give my rundown, so you get finished with whatever you got to say.
You go ahead, and then maybe I'll think of something, or I'll interject.
All right, so I'm not a fan. One, I'm not a fan of any kind of choke collars or any of that stuff.
Oh yeah, no.
Like people will frown upon you if you got a shock collar or a choke collar on your dog.
They don't take that shit. It don't take that.
They will try to steal your dog from you. So don't do that. You know, we go to the farmer's market and you see dogs. I be looking at the collars. I be like, I wonder if somebody bold enough to come out here with a choke chain on, because they will get shunned.
They will.
I'm not a fan of pee pads. I don't think that a dog in any way needs to think about using the bathroom in the house. I know they're convenient and they are for specific circumstances. So if you have a system set up where you can get your dog on a schedule where you take them out in the morning, get off of work, take them out when you get off of work, and maybe take them out before you go to bed.
That's my schedule.
That'll be perfect, because pee pads they just give the dog the idea that there are some contexts where I can go in the house, and you don't want that to get misconstrued with your dog. The most important things you need to train your dog to know are stay. Stay is life-saving. Sit. Sit is very helpful for them jumping up on people and just self-control. Heel, which is them following right behind you on your heels, basically. And those are the three most important that you need to have your dogs learn, because they revolve around self-control for your animal. You need to research crate training and determine what crate training is. Crate training basically habituates the dog to know that the crate is their home.
And it's safe. People think that putting the dog in a crate all day is like mean. It becomes their home, though. You know what I'm saying? Like if Remy does something that he knows he's not supposed to do, and he knows that he's going to get punished for it, he'll run to his crate because that's his safe place. And so it becomes their safe place. So it's not like a cruel thing. And dogs, when they get bored, are destructive. So you can leave your dog out while you're at work if you want to, because you think it's mean to put him in a crate. You're going to come home to some destructive, some torn up stuff. So. And
maybe you'll be able to train your dog to a point where they don't destroy things and you can leave them out, but you still always want them to have that crate training. My dog, when I would burn something in the kitchen and it would smoke and she would smell the smoke, she would go into her crate because she didn't know what in the world was going on. So just having that safe space was helpful. And from that, you can learn how to do all kind of other tricks.
Yeah, I think one of the main points as well is to remember that your dog is a dog. Because again, with a lot of owners, I see them treating them almost like they're humans or they're children. And once you give a dog that space within your life, they then feel that they're entitled to more than perhaps a dog should be. So, you know, my father-in-law, for instance, has this huge Rottweiler who, gets cooked meals and gets... And the trouble is when you do that, you try and give them dog food afterwards and nothing really happens. So it's, treat your dog well, treat your dog like you love them, but don't treat them like they're a human being that's gonna, going to be able to keep things in proportion and react reasonably.
Gonna be like, what the shit is this, dog?
Yeah.
What dog food?
What I do to get downgraded? This punishment? No, you're a dog. That's what that is. You were not supposed to have these things.
And table food will make your dog sick. Listen, you think it's cute when they beg and I want to give them some food. I just paid $100, and I don't feed them table food. This is not me having given him something, but my damn dogs, when I walk them, eat shit. When I tell you, I get so livid because I pay for grain-free, so like all of this shit so that they don't have skin allergy issues, and then you want to go eat stuff off the ground like a stray. You can be a stray if you would like to be a stray, but I just spent $130 for a vet visit because the younger dog apparently ate something outside, got a gastrointestinal bacterial infection, and was literally bleeding out of his butt. Like, there was no poop coming out. It was just like blood.
What does that have to do with table food?
Because if they eat, you're not supposed to eat. Dogs are not meant to eat what we eat, and so you can give them some. I've seen people.
Dogs are meant to eat what we eat, but not how we eat it.
Well, we have all those seasonings and shit in our stuff. It's not like, unless you're eating unseasoned chicken, what you talk about.
I mean, if you're going to give your dog like meat, then you have to do it certain ways. Like if you're going to give them dog bones, they can't be cooked. They have to be raw. Things like that, because when they're cooked, the bones become brittle and they can eat it and it can tear up their insides.
But I mean, most of the time when people are giving tables, it's stuff that they're eating because the dog is begging, and so
I mean, clearly a little piece of something at the table.
Let me tell you something. You spend one horrible vet visit having to pay, and this is not even the most. Kingston cost me the most before because I learned with him. I was giving him little bits of food because he was so cute, and he would come over and beg, and I would look, oh, here you go, and I had to take his ass to the vet, and it cost me almost $500 because I don't even remember what food. After that I was like, dog food, period. That's all.
Well, I wouldn't give them food from the table just because I don't want them to beg. I don't want them to become habituated to coming to the table and asking for food or waiting for food to drop.
He's a cute little puppy, though.
I mean, I just feel like it'll make them say, they holding back the delicious shit. Why are they giving me these little dry granules of brown shit to eat in this bowl, and they got the good stuff at the table? When your dog start thinking like that, you're going to have a problem. Yeah. Now, talking about dog food and diet, get some good food. Don't get food that has wheat in. Like, look at the ingredients. If it has corn, if it has wheat, don't get that. Because this is what happens. We can't digest corn. Humans can't digest it. No system can digest corn. So a lot of these dog food companies get corn and wheat and mix up a whole bunch of stuff that isn't really filling or healthy, and they put it in dog food, and your dog eats it and it travels through their body, but it's never digested. So that's bad for poop consistency, which you want that. You don't want it to be wet some days and then solid some days. And so what you want to do is you want to get some higher quality food. It costs more, but you can feed them less.
Yep.
They actually digest it, and that's the reason you don't have to give them as much, because their body is actually working it through their system, and they feel like they've eaten versus always feeling hungry because the food is traveling through, and their poop will be consistent enough to pick up every time like it's supposed to be.
And dogs have allergies at 100%. Again, I have a miniature schnauzer and I have a German short-haired pony. The miniature schnauzer is the older dog, and I didn't realize for the longest time that he was scratching so much. I was like, he doesn't have fleas. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And it was the food that I was feeding him. He was having, he had a food allergy. So they have food allergies. That happens. So the higher quality the food and the less bullshit that's in it, the less likely you're like to tap into one of those food allergies. Because, like, they can't tell you. Dogs can't say, hey, I can't have this. But he was almost scratching his skin off. He was so itchy all the time. And I talked to the vet, changed the food, and he hasn't had that problem since.
Just while we're on the subject, I wonder, what's your opinion of so dog breeds that have been bred so much they're now kind of messed up, like pugs and French, what are they, French terriers or something? Like they have the problems where if you buy a pug, for instance, the likelihood is you're going to have to pay for surgery at some point to correct the really short snout and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Human beings are shit. That's my opinion. Human beings, we are, some of us intellectually are at the top, but I feel like, you know, we look at it, it's like they're designer dogs, and so we just, you know, we bred them and bred them and bred them to be what we want them to look like without thinking about health concerns or what that means for the dog because it looks cute to us. I think it's shitty. And I think that the payment for that is when you do buy one of those dogs that you gonna come out of some money because you're gonna have to pay to get this corrected, and that's what happened.
I just always think of Lawnmower Dog, the Rick and Morty episode.
Oh yeah.
Have you watched any Rick and Morty, Mike?
Oh yeah, all of it. And I think, you know, if Snowball was a pug, then there'd be a lot more. I feel like the owners would have a lot more to answer for if you know, on top of everything else, he's sitting there going, well, you've genetically modified me to the point where my body can't sustain itself because you think my face looks cute. You know, that's
exactly.
That's a problem.
I mean, we're essentially taking joy in having the short buzz version of dogs.
Yeah. It's it'd be like an alien presence with human pets, kind of looking at us and going, okay, there's these guys over here that have got they've got dwarfism, where we think that's really, really cute. Yeah, you get some, you know, heart-related problems associated with that, and blood pressure problems, and you get problems with the hips, and you know, there's some things that they have trouble with. But I want every single human to look like this, so only allow the dwarves to mate. You know, so yeah. It's like genetic modification before we knew what genes were.
It's ridiculous. I mean, look at wolves and look at a pug. I mean, come on. We did that. We ain't shit.
Yeah, terrible. We do a lot of things. I mean, for our enjoyment. I'm not going to get into the environmental shit, but we just do a lot of stupid stuff and feel like we don't have to be held accountable for it. And I feel like eventually, because listen, if Lawnmower Dog ever happened, I'd be fine. I would be okay. I would be in good with the dog. Like, I guess I would be a pet like Morty. But I'd be okay. Some of these people wouldn't be so lucky.
We would be getting what we deserve. Early white people did a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we look the way we look now because they were putting together the stronger ones with, you know.
I'm not going to attribute that to all the white people today, but early white people did a number.
Yeah.
Today, white people benefiting a little bit from some of that stuff, but, you know.
I mean, body types and setup is a lot. I mean, that's kind of, it's similar. It's not, I mean, obviously we not out here pugging it up, but we're larger. A lot of those things is because they were matching up certain ones with certain ones because they wanted stronger, faster, able to work longer, and so that has a lot to do with where we are currently as far as physically. But yeah, I think that humans just suck. They just suck. We just do stupid stuff.
No, so the advice is don't buy a pug.
I was going to get a pug, and somebody told me that sometimes they eyeball fall out. I was like, ain't no way I will get an animal that the eyeball is known to fall out sometimes.
They could get cherry eye. Bulldogs are that way too, aren't they? Any of the ones that have those like really smushed faces.
Oh, God, that's bad, isn't it?
Coming home and your dog run up to you and his eyeball is just dangling.
Well, you're at your friend's house and the eyeball falls out and it's just, oh yeah, no, it does that sometimes.
or your friend has never seen this happen and they think you just did this to their dog.
Call him Peter.
Yeah, so don't buy a pug, and if you do, don't squeeze it too hard. I guess that's the
move. Be careful with pugs. Few last things about dog ownership. If you want your neighbors and people to respect you, always keep your dog on a leash. Never feel comfortable enough outside with your dog that they are trained well enough that you don't have them on a leash, because all it takes is a squirrel or some creature they never seen to take off and then boom, hit by a car.
Can I speak to this boy? Because I have one.
Go for it.
I get so fucking mad with my face. Your dog is your dog, okay? I live in an apartment complex. There's no reason why I should be walking my dogs who are on leashes and your fucking dog comes running up to my dog. And then when I have an attitude, you want to tell me, he's friendly. He's friendly to you. Okay, and how do you know my dogs are friendly? My dogs may not be friendly. Then what? You gonna have attitude if they get into a fight? That shit makes me so angry. If you want your dog to be off the leash, get a house with a yard and put him in that. Do not be out here like little Spike is not gonna hurt anybody. I hate that. It makes me so angry. Like, I keep both of my dogs. Kingston's 20 pounds. Okay, and so even if he ran up on somebody, he's not gonna do no damage. You could punt him and it'd be fine. But even with him only being 20 pounds, ever since I've had him, he's always been on a leash. Like, I cannot stand that. And then the owners are so nonchalant about it. Like, oh, he's friendly. It's okay. No, it's not okay. You need to buy a leash. You telling me you could spend $500 on this dog, you couldn't, go an extra 10 and get a leash and a collar? Like, ugh. And it is not safe for the dogs because they do have, like, they see a squirrel, then they're going to run and they can get hurt. But also, they can get hurt by other dogs because they're going to run up on them because that's what dogs do. And either they may smell something on the other dog they don't like, or my dog may smell something on your dog that he don't like, and now they in a fight because you're stupid. Put your dog on a leash. Sorry. I hate that, though.
So the last part for the dog training input is everything that I learned about the training that I wanted to do came from this dog trainer on YouTube named Zach George, ZAK George, and everything that I've learned about dogs came from him, and he just has a really, really friendly way of training dogs. It's not like consequence heavy like those shock collars and chains and stuff. So look him up, and I think that you'll get a lot of good input from him. I just no telling how many videos he got now, because this was like 5 years ago that I was looking up the train for him. Now, as far as input about a dog and being single, something that you're going to have to do is make sure that anybody that you plan on dating and interacting with likes dogs, are okay with dogs, and you're going to want your dog to have positive energy around that person, because it is real easy for your dog to immediately hate somebody that walks into your place.
Yes.
Now, if you like a person and your dog don't, what are you going to do with those existences?
Yeah.
So I guess early on enough, you need to make sure people know, I have a dog. Do you like dogs? It's a little dog, so.
And Honey's adorable, by the way. The picture is so cute.
It's funny to me how, like, when you hear the two breeds that a dog mix, it's like they look exactly like those two dogs mixed together. Like, it's got the body of a Chihuahua and the head of the terrier.
Yeah.
It's weird to me.
She's cute. Now, what I will say, you also need to kind of know your dog. Okay, and I say that because I have two dogs on opposite ends of the spectrum. If Kingston doesn't like somebody, he's an asshole. He likes no one. I think the handful of people that he will tolerate is on point. My mom and my younger brother. Everybody else is questionable. Like, he's just an asshole. So he's not gonna bite people, but he ain't gonna fool with you. So I can't really go to him not liking somebody and be like, oh, that's weird. Now the other dog likes everybody. And so the only person I've ever seen him have an issue with is the Jamaican that lives at my apartment that's been creeping me out for the last few years. And so that just let me know further that I was right in being concerned about him trying to date me or whatever the Jamaican has going on. But you have to know your dog's temperament too, because Remy like everybody. I mean it's problematic how much he likes people. Like, he would help a robber carry my shit out of my house. I feel like if they were like, you're such a good boy, then he'd be like, okay, I'll carry the TV out, let's go. Like, he is so friendly.
He would literally think you choking him to death is playing until he is dead. Like, that is how Remy is. It's like, I will kill you, and it just be like playing, until it's like, okay, no more life. He would die thinking that was okay.
He is so friendly. Like, it is so sickening sometimes, because I'm just like, why are you so happy? All the time.
Why do you deserve happiness?
Not necessarily, but it was such an adjustment from Kingston that hates everything. And when I say they're on the opposite ends, you come in my house, Kingston's gonna mean mug you. Remy is gonna have a heart attack because he's gonna want to like he shakes his tail so fast that his whole ass wiggles, and he's just so excited and wants everybody to pet him and wants to play with everyone. They are literally on opposite ends. So you also kind of have to know the temperament of your dog. That goes for dog parks too. Not all dogs are going to do well in dog parks. Sometimes their temperament just isn't going to be, and they do have different temperaments. You can have 6 of the same dog breed and they'll have 6 different temperaments. It just kind of depends on the parents. And with Honey being a shelter dog, you don't know what her life has been like for the 2.5 years she's been here. So you kind of have to get to know your dog's temperament. So them not liking somebody is an automatic issue as long as it's not like aggressive. Not like Kingston ain't aggressive. He just ain't gonna fuck with you. He's just gonna be like, okay, whatever. Me mug. He's like a cat. I hate that. It took me so long for me to admit that because I hate cats. And when On Point said that, I was so against it. But the more that I pay attention to his behaviors, I'm like, I got a damn cat. I really did.
And it took her getting Remy to recognize the gap between Kingston's behavior and a regular dog's behavior.
I thought Kingston was a regular dog. I thought this is how all dogs were. I was like, okay, he's just a little butthole, but that's okay.
So what is it about cats then?
So what?
If that was a regular a dog in your mind, then what was it about cats that was so different?
Because I feel like cats are vindictive. Like Kingston is just kind of like, he's just not gonna really deal with you. He didn't really do like vindictive stuff. I have seen cats like just be assholes. They knock stuff off counters. They're just.
Oh, they'll definitely do that. But like my wife and I years and years ago we had a flat share over in Oxford here, and the woman that we were sharing the flat with had a cat, and it. There's this image of them being kind of, like you say, vindictive, kind of mean, but also quite graceful. And this cat was the most klutzy, stupid animal I think I've ever encountered in my, experience of animal kind. On a regular basis, we'd come back from work and it would have got itself jammed between the television and the wall, with its front paws on the TV and the back paws balancing up on the windowsill, and it would be there for hours because it was terrified of the cables that were plugged into the back. I don't know, probably thought they were snakes or something, but every day you come back and you think, you've done it again. I don't even want to help you out of there because you'll never learn. But it's that kind of klutzy, goofy personality, and I think maybe you get more of that on the cat side, but I don't know if you can tell. I'm a cat guy.
That's how I look at it. It's like
On Point is a cat guy too.
Yeah, I fool with cats,
even though he's allergic.
Now, at 30, I became allergic to cats at 30. That can happen, people. Cats and seafood at the same time. So enjoy and embrace every moment that you eat crab legs and shrimp. Maybe your last. But I fool with cats. I really like cats. And I look at them more as mischievous. I look at them more like little scientists, I guess. Like they always doing experiments. It's like when they knocking stuff off the table, they like, what is this doing? And then they do it and they be like, and they don't have knowledge to do experiments, so they kind of just do it forever. Like in our science world, we do experiments, we extract the data, and we got it. It's like we can replicate it, but it's really no point. We really kind of know how it works. Cats just never know how it works. They just be like, okay, I'm gonna knock this off. And it's like they're experimenting forever without getting data. So I look at them more as like goofy, like Michael's saying, mischievous, and just silly little motherfuckers. They ain't really like, they ain't klutzy like dogs. Now dogs be fucking stuff up. They really don't be meaning to. For example, so my friend got a new dog, and this dog, she had 2 cats. Mm-hmm. So while trying to play with the cats, it's trying to do stuff that cats are trying to do. The cats like run up under the table, and this is a pit bull. So this dog tried to run up under the table and damn near flip the whole table over, just because the dog just is trying to be like cats. But I mean, it's just a different type of dynamic between the pets.
Well, I didn't know that, and so he kept saying that about Kingston when I only had Kingston, and I was like, he's not a cat. Then I got Remy, and I was like, oh, this is what dogs are like. Because he will clear. First of all, Kingston they docked his tail, so he barely has a tail, and he will, so I've never had to deal with a dog with a real tail before. Remy will clear a table with his fucking tail and not even realize it. Like, he's just happy and wagging it, and so I'm like, oh my god, you're gonna break it, and he's just like wiggle wiggle wiggle, like it doesn't matter to him. He is the goofiest, and I don't know if you've ever seen a German short-haired pointer. He's a mix, but you can tell he's mostly German short-haired pointer. He's like a smaller version. Males are usually like 75 pounds, and he's like right at 50, so he's a smaller version, but he has the longest legs. They're very lean dogs because they're hunting dogs. They're bred to hunt. So he's really lean, but he has very long legs. So like, he looks bigger than he is because of how lean and tall he is. But because his legs are so long, he's the goofiest dog I've ever seen in my life. Like, trips over his own feet. And he's 2 now, so he's been in this body for a good while. And I was like, oh, he'll get used to it. No, he's still goofy, bumps into stuff, runs into stuff. Like, it was a real eye opener for what like other people with dogs have been experiencing, because I've had like a cat dog for years. Kingston's will be 12 this year, and he has been that way his whole life. Like, he was always not. He'll cuddle with you when he wants to. And any other time, he's like, fuck off me. What are you doing? Like, leave me alone. He, like, stays to himself. He's a cat, basically. In a little doggy body. So, know your dog's temperament, I guess is the last thing I have.
Well, I'm done.
Okay. The other questions that we had actually are for Michael. They're not for us.
Okay.
So, we talk about government name podcasts all the time, Shogun and Cole Jackson. And so Shogun had a few questions. One is that we had mentioned that you are a comedian, and he wanted to know how difficult it is for you in this this society of like being politically correct and people getting, being deemed to be more sensitive. Like, he wanted to know if you have trouble, or if you ever worry that you're going to go too far with a joke and it's going to offend somebody.
So I think if I'm if I'm writing material to take on stage, I'll certainly give it more consideration than I would a joke that I was just sharing my friends at home, or saying in to a anonymous audience, I guess. So my rule of thumb in my head is, if I'm writing a joke about anything, if I'm punching down in any way, I assume there's someone who's the butt of that joke in the audience when I'm saying it, and I think to myself, look, would I be upset, or would I have a bad time if I was going to a comedy show and for instance, earlier on in our dialogue we were talking about breeding pugs, and I said, it almost be like an alien is picking out someone with dwarfism and saying, I want to accentuate that. And I suppose if I was going to say that on stage, I might then go, well, if someone in the audience had dwarfism and they were and they heard me say that or make that reference, how'd I put that in a way where it would I don't know, but it'd be more inclusive, I guess. So I'd probably say something, I'd emphasise that the point I'm making is that I'm trying to say that they're accentuating things that aren't necessarily beneficial to being a human, versus me saying if you've got dwarfism then you're less than human, or you're a bad person in some way. But in terms of the subject matter that it's possible to address, there's not a lot. There's not a lot that you can't talk about, really. I hear a lot about people being offended by stuff and people being upset, and certainly comedians every now and then, if it's a slow news day, someone will come along and feign shock and horror at some innocuous comment that someone made during a stand-up performance, which always gets me, because whatever they've said, it's clearly a joke. They're professional joke tellers standing on the joke stage, and people have paid to come and listen to jokes, and then all of a sudden you've taken something seriously. It's kind of ridiculous, but I think the important thing is, if you're discussing a sensitive topic, and sex, death, politics are generally the ones where people start to get a bit upset, talk about it with respect toward the subject matter. So if you're talking about death, you've got to have respect for people in the audience that might be grieving. And that doesn't mean you can't address it and can't talk about it. You've just got to be careful about how you do it. And I think, generally speaking, audiences are far less likely to be offended by anything than you might expect. I've done my most recent gig was here. It was in Cheltenham, which is like quite a white middle class countryside area. It's about 7 miles away from where I live, I was making jokes about the fact that I'm mixed race. I was making sort of jokes about sex, jokes about being a father and how gross children are. I was dropping swear words in left, right and centre in a venue where normally you don't do that because people tend to get quite upset. But there was no issue whatsoever. Everyone had a good time, I hope, and there was laughing the whole way through. So it's it's okay. Just 90% of the time when I hear people saying, "Oh, this is, it's too PC now. I wish we could go back to the old days," it tends to be because the jokes they're telling are out and out racist. Like, you kind of listen to them and go, oh, that's not a joke, or that's only funny if you think women are shit, or that's only funny so I've rambled on a bit there, but
no, that's good input. I was wondering on with that, do you see a difference between I guess how you see PC culture in America is developing versus PC culture in the UK? Is there a difference, or is this just been this universal sweep of how people have started to address when they become offended by something that's said?
So I guess I think a big part of it is something you've talked about in the podcast before, but it was specifically as regards to race relations, where you've said that for a lot of it, the issue with predominantly white countries and how they address anything to do with political correctness is it's difficult to see it's difficult to see from other people's perspective. So until you know something is until you've experienced something, it's difficult to understand how it is an issue. And I think broadly speaking in the US and in the UK, that can be seen in this kind of top-down approach to a given societal ill or a given push towards political correctness. So to stick with the race example, for instance, what happened broadly in the UK is we've said, right, there's a lot of stuff in the media and there's a lot of stuff being advertised that promotes this inequality of races. So what we need to do is to get rid of that, because those are the symptoms that we can see. But because the underlying issue, the disease itself, is more this sort of insidious, culturally ingrained stuff that's going on, all that does is it just kind of pushes it into this implicit place. So the problem, i.e. racism, still exists, but it exists implicitly, it exists more silently, and in many ways that makes it a lot harder to address than when it's out and it's everywhere. And that, I think, is what people have a problem with PC culture. Because you've kept the mindset there because you haven't gone towards the root causes. So economic inequalities, education, cultural isolation within a society. Those are all pretty much by the wayside. But now you can't make certain jokes. So you get people that are in this position of it's PC culture. I can't make jokes about trans people, or I can't make jokes about gay people, or about this, that, or the other. And there's no nuance, and it's not because it's addressed from the symptoms down rather than from the causes up. I think our two nations kind of had something in common there. But political correctness as it goes in the UK, it's a tricky one. I've seen where I live at the moment in the country, it's almost behind where I come from originally, down in London, because it's a lot more multicultural. It's a real mixing pot. Growing up, my friends were let me think, Chilean, Russian, Bulgarian, Japanese, Jamaican, abroad. I think we had one friend who was English for several different, several generations back, and his nickname was White John, because it was this kind of, it was this this concept that it was, although in the overall statistics, white people in the majority in Croydon, it's still, the vast majority of the kids that we knew anyway at the Performing Arts College I went to were all mixed race. And so then moving into a predominantly white area like I'm living in now, the concept of political correctness is more of this alien, it's this annoying thing that millennials like to do, rather than a progression of society and a progression of culture.
That's kind of how it is here. I think the South here is viewed the same way as the countryside is there. And I think, yeah, you're right. When you live around a group of people that are just like you, and when you haven't for years had to consider how what you say affects other people, when you have all these other groups that are around now, and now it does seem like it's this millennial, like, why are y'all so upset about this? People haven't been upset about it before, but it's been like, because you've been around people like you. And it's been okay before.
Yeah, I've never really understood that. This concept of why is it such a? It's not like anyone's made it illegal to say or think anything. It's just it's almost the vast majority of it is just people are more comfortable in saying I don't agree with what you're saying, or they're more comfortable in saying it's fucked up that you've said that. My father's a white man who was born in 1950, and his view on things like race and immigration and all that kind of stuff, like he has these what was he saying the other week? It was like, you can't say what you want anymore. It's like, no, you absolutely can. You can say whatever you want. We do have freedom of speech. You can get on whatever platform you like and say whatever you like, but the people that hear it are under no obligation to like it or to like you. And that's really what the change is for me.
Yeah. I think the trade-off for progress, where you have oppressed cultures, is that culture becoming emboldened enough to say, I'm not going to take this thing anymore, or I'm not going to take that thing anymore. Hey, that what you've been saying is offensive. And I think the fact that the cultures that oppress have been able to get away with saying and doing what they want for so long, that the way they frame people actually standing up for themselves as being too sensitive. Because the reality is they want to continue to be able to say what they've been saying forever. Because the thing you got to look at is like, for cultures that oppress, progress is always going to take away from the oppressors. It's just no way around it. Like, they lost their white-only water fountains. They lost we can only sit in the restaurants without black people or brown people. They lost being able to sit in front of, like, the oppressive cultures are going to continue to lose as long as progress. Like, the journey to equality for them has to mean they got to accept less. They're going to have to accept less roles, less jobs, less privileges, less everything. And that's how they frame it.
The thing that gets me about it, though, is that kind of makes sense for people, for instance, for a white person that was around during segregation. But for the new generation that was born after that, they haven't lost anything. Like, they're still in the same... Like, so I was talking... again, I talk to my father a lot about stuff like this because he's quite conservative, and I like having a debate/argument about this sort of stuff. But... so he was talking about the concept of, say, white privilege, and I was saying, a big chunk of that is that you haven't had to think about it, and this concept of privilege, it isn't that each individual person is born and they're given vast amounts of money and they're given all this opportunity, because you can still be born poor, whatever race you are, and that's, capitalism makes it so that that's kind of the worst. If you're super poor, you don't really have any privilege in the grand scheme of things. But specifically along that race stuff, it's not that you have an advantage is that you haven't had to consider any disadvantages in that specific context of your life. You know, you can still be poor, you can still be disabled, you can still have barriers to achieving what you want and barriers to the opportunities that you want. But in this one little corner around race, the concept of white privilege means that you didn't have to consider your race when applying for a job, when introducing yourself to a new person. You never had to feel like you were representing your entire community and that your behaviour was being scrutinised in a certain way. And that's a privilege. And the reason it's called a privilege, even though it may not feel like one, is because other people, their normal doesn't include it. So it may not feel like a benefit where you're sitting, but trust me, there's people that are sitting in other places and they look at you and they go, wow, you're privileged. And it's, you know, it's okay. I've kind of lost my point a little bit there, but yeah. That's why I offered to be on the show. I thought hopefully if I don't meander too much, but I totally did.
I think that and the way I look at it, you know, as a black man, is from the lens of slavery. It's like white privilege in America. It is, and I don't know enough UK history to know what brown or slavery or any of that stuff look like, but the lens I look at it from is that even though like white privilege doesn't guarantee you have something, it guarantees that your lineage had the opportunity to obtain these things. But just because your 10 times great grandfather fucked off his opportunities for liquor and prostitutes don't mean that today your lineage didn't have that opportunity. Mine only started having the opportunity 2-3 generations ago. So white privilege just means your lineage was not ever held back, even if we go back through generations, and you didn't have to start at some point. Like, you didn't start playing Monopoly after all of the pieces were, after all of the land was acquired or all the railroads were bought. Everything is, because now every other culture that comes in after that Monopoly game was started, every space we land on, we got to pay. Whether that be through racism, whether that be through unequal opportunities in education, whether that be through redlining and being thrown in ghettos and communities that don't have resources. Like, we stepped into the game like this. And that's what white privilege means. It just means that, today you might be stepping on a space that you owe money to, but it's very likely, and you have a higher likelihood that you own those pieces, or at least your uncle or somebody you know own those pieces where you can be connected to it at some point,
I'm going to interject really fast because we've basically gotten into the other question that Shogun had, which was what are race relations like in the UK?
Oh, well, like I say, I'm often astounded by what I read in the news coming out of the US compared to where certainly from where I come from. So Croydon, it was. It had its problems, It was, if you're from London and you say people talk to me from London and say, "Oh, where are you from?" and I go like, "Oh, from Croydon." It's one of those. I think the worst reaction I ever had is someone put their phone in their pocket, and I don't know if that was like a subliminal, or a subconscious thing. But I'd sort of know. I'm like, really? Okay. But in terms of race relations, it wasn't perfect, but it felt okay. It wasn't as outwardly problematic as I'm seeing, certainly in the news from the States, and I think it's still a big problem. We've got problems stemming back from the old class system that we had. So there was this deeply entrenched kind of working class, middle class, upper class concept, and race during the first sort of main instance of mass immigration that affects our current society, which was just after World War II. There was an issue because all of the other races that were coming into the country were doing so at those lower classes, and therefore they've got the racism is the first hurdle, but also this sort of secondary classism as well, which has taken a long time to try and cure. But one of the benefits of that is that as the class system has broken down, it also has helped people to move. It's had a knock-on effect with race relations. So I think that, they're not great, but I'm pretty proud of where I come from in terms of how racial integration goes on, and crossing cultural boundaries and that kind of thing. And certainly the people I know from the States are all military, so they've travelled around the world quite a bit. So there's no barrier there, hardly at all. But I know those are just the guys I know, and there's a lot of Trump supporters over at the base. So
you mentioned being mixed race, and we talked about this, but just for anybody who may not know, what are you mixed with?
So I'm half British English, and I'm half Filipino. So my mother was born in Ilocos Norte, which is about 6,000 miles east of where I'm currently sitting, give or take. Was that difficult for you growing up, being of mixed race? Well, I think I mentioned on one of the live streams that you guys did that. Well, my mother passed away when I was very young, like before my first birthday, and so I didn't really have. I mean, I had connection with the Filipino community in that, her friends would still see me from time to time, and my god sisters and god brothers were Pinoy themselves, but I sort of got everything about me, my tastes, my accent, the way I hold myself, it tends to be quite white British. So I had this kind of real race identity crisis as I was growing up. I when I was a young boy, I viewed myself as a white kid, and I think my grandmother, who was, not great with the concept of other races, she always had the view that if I acted that way and I was as white as possible, then it would be in the long run a benefit for me, because and I think a lot of parents are guilty of this, that she was raising or helping to raise me by to live in the world that she grew up in, and I think you tend to do that as a parent, and it's something you need to kind of watch out for. Is you're not raising your kids to live in the world that you're raising them to live in the world of tomorrow, so you got to bear that in mind. Growing up, I didn't have too much of a problem because I was mixed race. A lot of the time I didn't pass as white, but I passed as one of the normal ones, if you know what I mean. It's like I've heard that a few times in my life. It's like, I'm half Filipino, right? And like, no, but you're basically white, aren't you? All right, dude. There's only been a couple of times that I've properly had a day where I'm like, well, that person treated me like shit for that reason, or I get called Chenk or something. It's very, very few and far between. I was recently on holiday in Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm sure. I'm obviously, because I'm not Asian, and I don't think I have any Asian friends. So I'm not around them to see somebody say that, but that's just so funny that that's still a word that is used.
Yeah. I've had chink. I had zipperhead one time. I didn't know what that was, and I had to look it up, which was stupid.
Can you explain? Because I don't know. Do you know?
It's Well, I heard it. I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't know that it was like a racial epithet or what was going on, and it turns out it comes from, I think, the Vietnam War. Because if you shoot a farmer in the head with a 50 cal, it's like a zipper. Oh man. And I felt stupid at the time because I'd kind of gone away and offended myself, because in the moment the guy said it and I was like, oh, that's fucking stupid, that doesn't mean anything, and then I went away and went, hey.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. So I kind of learnt a lesson there, like sometimes ignorance is bliss. But yeah, it's been super few and far between, and in the case it has happened, it's been exceptional circumstances, and it's not like an everyday thing. And also owing in part to the US, there's a lot of positive stereotypes about Asian people, which I'm really ambivalent about. I don't know how to feel about that, but I guess when they were trying to backtrack from the whole concept of yellow peril and all of this stuff, they painted this picture of Asian people being the ideal immigrant and being hardworking and being really good at maths and stuff, and it, like, as a concept, it just caught on like wildfire. So that's
not particularly.
And I think, as I said in one of my letters, I'm Filipino. When most people think Asian, they think Japanese and ancient culture and amazing, beautiful tea ceremonies. It's like, no, I've just got family members that live in a breeze block hut. It's not the same thing.
That's cool. I think those are the only two that Shogun had. As far as did somebody? I feel like somebody said something last night when we were all at dinner that had a question. Oh, Brexit. They wanted to know about Brexit.
Yeah, it's a shit show.
I was, I guess I talked about Brexit before, and then the last thing I mentioned was Brexit was going to hell in a handbasket. It's like nobody can agree on anything. It's like, from my understanding, it's like they want all the benefits that comes along with being in the EU, but they want the independence of not being in the EU. And clearly the EU is like, who the fuck y'all talking to if y'all think y'all finna get that?
I mean, you've pretty much got it there. I think that for me the most frustrating thing is how it's all come about, and the ugliness that it's really highlighted, and it's changed my opinion of my fellow countrymen, which is sad. Yeah, right. You sort of walk around being like, oh yeah, everyone's okay, and then they elect a angry face drawn on an orange ball sack, and you're like, well, okay, maybe some of you maybe there's a lot more short-sighted racists out there than I realised. But Brexit was similar, but basically 1 year the really liberal party we got out here, so we haven't got a two-party system technically, and there's this sort of the first and second parties in all elections are basically the Labour Party, who are the Liberals, and the Conservative Party, who are the Conservatives. And there's a third party called the Liberal Democrats, and they're a little bit more liberal than Labour. And 1 year the Liberal vote split across Labour and the Liberal Democrats. So we got a hung parliament, and the Liberal Democrats teamed up with the Conservatives for some reason. And fast forward, everything went hideously wrong for the Liberal Democrats because they were teamed up with the right-wing party, so they lost all of their votes, and most of the votes that left from that got sort of upset with the whole situation, and so they moved across to the right wing, and then the Conservatives were in power and they didn't do very well, and then in order to stay in power they decided to court the racist vote, because this super far right party was also starting to drag away some of their voters, and so they said, right, to appease all of the screaming racists out there, what we're going to do is going to promise this referendum. It's not about immigration, obviously, but I think we all know it's about immigration. And so they made this promise to hold this referendum. It worked, it kept them in power, but then they actually ran the referendum, which was a bit short-sighted perhaps, and then 52% of the voting public decided to do this thing that no one really understood. And in terms of why it was voted for, it's all of those really frustrating reasons as to what the problems with democracy in general. The Leave campaign had a really good Facebook campaign, for instance. They reckon that's one of the main reasons they won. So it's very upsetting, and certainly for the time that the campaign was running, there was no information. It was just screaming and lies.
Pretty much how our last election went.
But we had it on both sides. Like, neither side was making any sense. Both sides were just it was like really clickbaity, I guess is a way of putting it. But it was very, very thin on facts and very high on emotions.
did it really play out that so many people just thought this was shit that they didn't take it seriously?
Oh yeah, that was a big chunk of people. So that was a phenomenon of what's known as the protest vote, which I think, in the context of voting in a democracy, is a bit petulant. But there were people that were voting to leave, just to show the government that they were serious about being upset about the current state of the country. As to how many people that was their reasoning, you can look at the polls and things, but there's no way of really knowing for sure. And also it was a referendum. It wasn't actually like an election where you've got to take the vote as gospel. It was a referendum where it's meant to be, the just kind of getting an idea for what people are thinking. So it was only based on a single Conservative promise that they would take the result of the referendum to heart, that it actually happened. And there was loads of stuff about it, like the fact that as soon as the Leave campaign won, the Prime Minister quit his job immediately. So, that'd be like Trump getting elected and the entire Senate just going, well, that's it, we're fucked. Bye.
Has any of what happened for you or for anybody you know translated into day-to-day issues or things that you see have changed in your life?
Yeah, and unfortunately. So, sorry, I'm just knocking my own microphone. My sister was in a pub a couple of weeks after the referendum result came in, and this political commentator leant across and told her she would have to go home and all of this stuff. Which it's like, okay. A, she was born in Croydon, and B, the Philippines is a little bit outside of Europe, so I don't see how it's going to have much of an effect. But yeah, that happened, and in general, anyone I know that's come from a European background, it's just uncomfortable, because we have this thing called free movement, where it basically works like moving from one EU country to another it's like moving from one state to another. We're separate countries with separate laws and separate governments, but we've got this freedom of movement that allows us to move around and study in other places, work in other places, and all of this kind of stuff. And there's millions of Brits that live in other countries across Europe, and there's millions of Europeans that live in the UK. And all of a sudden, this vote came out, and if everyone I know that's in that position, it felt kind of personal. It's like waking up. It's like waking up, and everyone's had a referendum, and they've voted to shut down the Conversation Con Artist podcast. It's like, oh, I didn't know you all felt like that. It has caused some chaos on a personal level, and there's like things have happened in like local news and stuff like that, much like with Trump, where a certain undesirable element of society has felt empowered. They feel like they've got to win.
Watching that whole thing, our last election, because I know it seemed like the whole world was kind of watching it, and I feel like we looked like just a bunch of jackasses the whole time.
It was scary. I mean, it was. I guess I'd say it was a reminder that none of us are that far removed from electing another demagogue psycho, and we all like to think, we're too civilized, I've been online and I've seen people talking about the Trump presidency, so I know that there's this whole thing where liberals aren't allowed to compare him to Hitler because it upsets conservatives and supporters and stuff like that. But as an example of a demagogue and how it relates to me, the most recent one in my memory is Adolf Hitler. That's the one I learnt about in school, and I heard about his his beer hall putsch and his how he got to power, and Kristallnacht and all of this stuff that he did to get to this position where he was a dictator, and he did all these dreadful things. And I remember as a kid all of the ugly stuff that happened after he got into power aside, just looking at how he got there in the first place, I remember thinking, how is that possible? How did an entire nation not notice that he was going to do this? Like, he never made any, okay, he reined it in a little bit, but he was clearly a bit of a whack job and clearly a massive racist as he was coming up, and he clearly hated Jewish people. And you read news articles from the time saying things like, oh, he only says that to get votes in the ballot box. He's not actually going to do this to people, or he's not actually going to do that. But it just didn't make any sense. And now with Trump and to a lesser extent with Brexit as well, I feel like I've kind of lived through it. And I've seen how quickly people can be made to vote for things and support things that are really quite abhorrent and nonsensical. That's the thing that really gets me. I can accept that people have a different opinion to me, and in doing so I can go like, okay, well, I don't like Trump, but I'm not his target demographic, and someone else with a different opinion might like all that bullshit that he does and the facts that he's a sex offender. That might be their thing. But then even then, I try and put myself in that position and go like, okay, what I love is racism and sex offending. How do I feel about Trump? He hasn't kept any of his promises. So why? Yeah.
He's determined, because the one big thing that he promised was this damn wall. And he's so focused on this wall because he knows that was his one huge campaign promise. And all of these idiots that think that that's actually going to make a difference are really expecting this wall to be built.
Yeah, the wall's a great example of it, right? Because it's even when he was campaigning, me as a person living, on the other side, well, a quarter of the way around the planet, completely. Just looking at the globe and looking at it and going, well, that's not going to work. It's ridiculous. He might as well have promised that he was going to paint the moon blue. Like, it's just never going to happen. And people supported it, like, okay, and then they thought it was going to actually occur. It was, it was very weird watching from the other side of the pond. Although I must admit, there was a little part of me that went, okay, we got some weird stuff with the whole Brexit situation going on, and we're not looking particularly clever. And then you guys elected Trump, and I was like, okay, that's cool. We got something to hide behind for a little while.
I could totally see it. Being here through it was surreal. Like, it felt like it just wasn't realistic. Like, that this was actually happening, that people had actually voted him in. And then these last few years with him being president have been even more surreal, where it's just like, really? Like, every day I feel like something happens to where you're like, really? Like, it still hasn't settled. I wouldn't, I haven't counted out him having a second term, unfortunately. I don't have faith in my fellow Americans now, so I wouldn't be surprised if he got voted in for a second term. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that he's in some way arrested or indicted, or just some kind of something happens to get him out of office, if nothing else. It's just got to the point where he seems to have broken so many laws, and obviously as well, and it's really strange. I feel like if any other president had done even one of the crazy things, like mad crazy things that he's come out with, it would have been a scandal. And this
is what gerrymandering has done in our political system, where politicians can basically draw their own districts. They draw districts where the people that are likely to vote for them are in. So their districts are now, instead of 50-50 Democrat Republican, it's like 80% Republican. But what that does is it draws out people to challenge you in the more extremes. So gerrymandering been around for 50, 60 years, and now it's created this very, very isolated party, like completely polarized. and you got these people who are so polarized to one end that they're willing to accept the shit Trump putting out to maintain that power and to hopefully move into their version of those extremes one day. But I think what we learned in the Cohen trial, we learned that Trump has done a lot of shady shit financially. Not only that, but Cohen is just straight snitching. He was like, they were like, so who would we talk to find out more about this? He was like, okay, Weiselberg, this person, that person. And then he would be like, and AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, got out there and pretty much made him admit that, yeah, he was doing some fraudulent stuff with these businesses. And we found out that he wrote a check to Cohen for $35,000 for paying that hush money to Stormy Daniels, and that was done during his presidency. That was in August of 2017. So this was a way to skirt around finance laws. The problem with him doing that is that if you pay for anything in a campaign that's related to the campaign, you have to tell people that you're paying for this for the campaign. He didn't pay for it during the campaign. He paid for it outside and then was still doing that business while he was the president. So that's a big problem. But what's happening right now, which Cohen mentioned a couple of times, is that he's cooperating with the Southern District in New York, which is the agency in America that goes after financial crimes, and they are good at what they do, and he's cooperating with them, which means that they are likely trying to put a case up against Donald Trump and his financial crimes in New York, probably not related to the financial crimes, whatever he's done as president of the government or whatever, but as it pertains to any financial crimes he had before. Now the problem is, which has to be figured out, is the statute of limitations. Oh, my camera just did something weird. The statute of limitations on financial crimes in New York is 5 years. However, they have a rule that freezes that statute of limitation if they are in an unprosecutable position. So him being the president right now actually freezes the amount of time that the statute of limitations would normally run up on anybody else that wasn't charged in those 5 years. So what they're likely doing is building a case against Donald Trump and his financial crimes, probably hinging upon what Cohen has said and utilizing Cohen. Now, for Cohen's crimes, do you know how much time he was supposed to get? 70 years. He got 3. Now, him cooperating with the Southern District in New York can potentially reduce that. And you know what? Every Republican in that hearing was just trying to discredit him as a liar. Like, if he lied to the Supreme Court and Congress and everybody already, not the Supreme Court, but if he lied to Congress already, how can we believe anything he says? And a Democrat got on and said, that would discredit any RICO case we have because it depends on people flipping. You can't say that once a person lies, they can never be honest again. Because that would take away a lot of the cases that we tried in this Congress and that we have debating about in this Congress if we don't trust people that flip, and that's how you know it's just a tactic for them to support Trump. But the idea was that he may get 3 years, and I'm just gonna go over some of the stuff that I heard in there that was a problem to me. One Republican said that you're masquerading and charading around and it looks like it might be for you to get a book deal. Can you promise to us today in Congress that you won't have a book deal or a movie deal or anything related to this? And I'm like, what the hell? What kind of shit is that?
They said that a few times as well.
It wasn't he said no. And then another one said, if you have any book deals or money, do you promise to donate those proceeds to somebody else? And he was like, no, I won't do that. And then at some point, Cohen was like, it's funny that y'all brought me here and no Republican senator in the room has asked me any questions about Donald Trump. Nobody has asked me any questions. And they proceeded to not ask questions about Trump. It was just, Cohen held his own. I believe he was credible. He already had the time for the lies that he had previously, so he had no reason to lie. and this shit looks horrible for Trump.
But I think the reason why he flipped, or the reason why he's snitching, Trump, and this is what he doesn't realize, Trump does not really, he's not a man that imbues loyalty from the people around him, right? If I'm facing 70 years and all I have to do is snitch on this horrible person who's been horrible to everybody ever since he probably been in the world, he's not somebody you're going to do 70 years for. He don't realize that, like, as horrible of a person as he is, anybody on his staff at any point could flip on him because he's a terrible person. Like, he's not somebody that realizes you need to treat the people who can be your downfall well. He don't do that. Like, he's an asshole. And so I feel like it's not surprising to me that Cohen is flipping on him. And I won't be surprised that anybody else comes forward because he's a terrible person. He feels like just because of who he is, you're supposed to be loyal to him. And that is not how loyalty works at all. And he's learning that. I mean, well, he's not learning it because he's a narcissist and he would never be able to conceptualize this. But we are seeing the effects of that. He's not somebody that people want to be loyal to. You're not going to do 70 years for Trump. Unless you're an idiot.
And Cohen brought up Trump's racism and said that he is even worse in private. And
I mean, he's pretty bad in public.
He's horrible in public. And he gave some examples of stuff that Trump has said to him while he said one of them, like they were driving through a black neighborhood and Donald Trump said only black people can live in this kind of environment. And yeah, and he said well, he said some more stuff. I can't remember what he said now, but he also said that so Mark Meadows, which is a Republican congressman, brought out a black woman named Lynn Patton. Didn't allow her to speak. He just basically said, "Hey, Cohen, since you're saying Trump is racist, I got a black woman right here who I'm not even going to let speak, who works for Trump, who said that she doesn't believe that Trump is racist. Now you can go sit down." Like,
can you imagine that in any other trial? Like, you say my client is a murderer, but right here is a person he knows that he hasn't murdered. So
seriously, and the reality is, she was the wedding planner for Eric Trump's wedding, who once he became the president, he gave her a job.
It's not even a good example.
It's a horrible example. She's literally in Trump's pocket. Like, the Trumps paid her to do something for them at some point. And then he gave her a job. Like, why would she ever? If she said anything to the contrary, she is losing her job today. We know how Trump operates.
In like the murderer analogy, that'd be the equivalent of them then saying, okay, yeah, but this one person that he hasn't murdered, he did try to beat her to death. She just survived, you know. Oh god,
it's ridiculous. And then now, so another Rashida Tlaib, this is another senator. She came out and was like, well, it was a black lady. She came out and said, it ain't cool to parade somebody out in front of you for, you know, as a black woman, I don't like to see that. She was kind of calm about it. Rashida Tlaib, she came out and said, she basically said, Senator, anybody who parades a black woman to make a racist seem less racist is racist.
You know, I'm not racist. I have this one black friend. Come over here. Look, my black friend. Like,
yeah.
Now, this is what he said to Cummings, which is the dude who was running it. He was like, first off, Cummings is my friend. Tell him. And then he was like, and Cummings came out like caping a little bit. I didn't like that, but he came out basically said, you know what? People don't like me for this, but I tell them that you one of my best friends. You know? And so he came out and he said, so I want this stricken from the record. He said, I have brown nieces and nephews. It's like the idea that having brown people in your family and around you mean you can't be racist somehow.
But did he say he wanted it stricken from the record right before?
He did.
So you're ashamed of it, like,
because he thought that she was calling him racist. And she said what he did was a racist act. Mm-hmm. And that's how white people conflate being called a racist with doing something that's racist. I mean, you can do something that's racist and not really be a racist. Or you can be a racist and never do shit that's racist. I mean, the nuance that exists within it is problematic in terms of we can't have this conversation because he gets so up in arm about possibly being called a racist when he just used that old trope of I got a black friend.
I never want to be that black friend. Like, I never want to be the person that they're like, Red, come over here and tell them I'm not racist. Like, I hope I'm not friends with anybody that would do that.
Especially not on a national stage. You know?
Yeah, so they really Rashida Tlaib basically had to go back on her words and was like, if the senator thought I was calling him a racist, that's not what I meant to do. I apologize. And I'm like, you shouldn't apologize for that. But, you know, she got to play nice. She is new in Congress and, you know, it is what it is. But that was something else to see. I mean, and Cohen held his own. Like, he was roasting their ass. You know what I'm saying? They were like, it was one point where they said something like, has anybody ever offered you money to do something or something? And he was like, no. Are you offering? I was like, he came in here with supersized balls. He came in here with go to jail balls on. I'm going to jail. I'll talk to these hoes how I want to.
What I thought was interesting was that in this kind of interview, he seemed, you know, he had the information behind him. He was communicating his point well. He wasn't being swayed. But when he had Trump's message behind him, which was just like a really bad lie, whenever you saw him on TV, he seemed like a crazy person, and like his arguments were not about, you know, oh no, I'm right. It was just I'll just keep saying what I think over and over again, and if you disagree with me, I'll say it slightly louder. And I think that really says a lot about the kind of stuff he was being forced to say.
It was you couldn't defend it. Like, it's just a shit show right now. But that was an interesting.
Yeah, I hope
and the sad thing is I don't even know what it's going to do because we have had presidents impeached for less.
Yeah, a lot less. Yeah, like a lot. I feel like Trump has done a lot of things that are individually bigger than other things that presidents have been impeached for.
The thing is, that's why they have been adamant about not putting Trump in front of important people. Because it ain't like Bill Clinton didn't get impeached for having a blowjob. He got impeached because he lied to Congress about the blowjob. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it was.
But it's so minor. Like,
I mean, it is minor, but it don't matter what kind of lie you tell to Congress. That's an impeachable offense. So, do we really think Trump gonna sit in front of them and tell the truth?
No.
He's not, and if he does, it's gonna be a problem because his truth's got to be
lie about
fucked
something
up.
stupid.
But still,
he doesn't know what the truth is. He has no concept of what that even means. His truth is whatever he feels like when he woke up that day.
Yeah. If you imagine that, if you're Trump's handler and he's about to go and speak to Congress, and you have to sit down with him for a good 20-30 minutes before he walks through the door and explain to him what the truth is. It's events that occur. Yeah. And it's not even anything to do with the question they asked him. He just walks in there and goes, the sky is down. And you're like, oh, well, fuck. that lasted 3 minutes.
If even that, it's surreal.
But that's why all of them are smart enough to know they don't need to be in a position to have to tell him that before walking into the room. They're just going to keep him from ever walking into the room. It's 2 years down. He's not walking into that room. That's the smart move.
Yeah,
I was Trump handler. I'd be like, I will strangle your ass to unconsciousness before you go into that room and just take my prison sentence. Because all of us are not about to go down with you because of your bullshit.
Donald Trump is not allowed in the truth room. It's just not. Yeah, don't even tell him where it is.
Keep him out at all costs.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a way he would get assassinated. They would assassinate him before they would let him go.
Yeah.
Take him down. He's turned the knob. Like, there's no way. But I think that's it for the listener. I don't think anybody else had any other.
And that was a long time, so we got some.
It was.
We got a short period of time. Not short. We got about 35 minutes left to go through some of the stories that we got.
If you have a question you would like for us to answer on the show, you can send it to our Gmail account, which is conversationconartist@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Conversation Con Artist, and send it to us that way. I'm going to start with something lighthearted. Did you see the crabs that the people got to?
I did.
And this happened in Alabama. So for anybody listening that doesn't already know, we live in the great, I guess it's subjective, state of Alabama. And
ain't nothing great.
It's not.
On paper, ain't shit great about Alabama. It's just one of those home is where the heart is places, and if it's home and your heart is there, just love it. But on paper, we ain't shit nowhere.
We're not shit. Education, nothing. We're just behind in every way. So 2 people arrested for fighting over crab legs at a buffet in Alabama. This was in Huntsville, which I have family in Huntsville, so I need to call my cousin and just laugh because, just because. But ironically, there was a police officer that was also at this buffet when the fight broke out. So it got broken up pretty quickly. The woman's name was Chiquita Jenkins. That is the blackest name.
Chiquita, like the bananas?
Yeah, Jenkins. Just the whole name is black.
That's very black.
So I was thinking Pokemon.
Say what?
So
it went out again. What'd you say?
like Pokemon when you said it.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
The other guy is by the name of John Chapman. They went toe-to-toe over some crab legs. Witnesses say they were using food tongs as swords and throwing plates. Apparently John was waiting in line for 10 minutes for the crab legs, and things just got crazy when she tried to cut him in line. First of all, I'm not gonna have crab legs, I feel like, at a place that does buffet style food. I don't trust it. I just don't. I don't think they would be very good crab legs.
I don't know. I've never eaten them. And I would never eat them because I'm allergic to them now. But if you've ever been to a restaurant, a buffet, Chinese buffet that has crab legs or crawfish, yeah, they get in those lines and they get crazy. You can tell people be at their table just looking, and I think the Chinese restaurants be bullshitting on purpose. It ain't like they actually plan on keeping the bar full of crab legs the whole time. I think they put like 10 crab legs out every 30 minutes on purpose because they trying to maintain they're not trying to spend a bunch of money on crab legs for that day. You're not paying enough for crab legs,
and it's free entertainment.
Yeah, and you have people that just sitting there waiting, and they get up and run over there. I'm just waiting for the day I see that shit go south, and somebody in Huntsville saw it. So, Michael, in the UK, like, how are the buffets in the UK? I mean, clearly, America is fat. I don't know the UK's version of diet and food and things of that nature. Like, do y'all have some kind of a weight problem, or y'all looking at legislation to stop soda sizes and sugars and things?
We're catching up. Yeah, we're getting there. So, I mean, I thought we had like a bit of a problem with food, but I can honestly say I've never seen someone, and I may have misheard here, but using tongs as swords. That's a great image. Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. We have like the Chinese all-you-can-eat buffets, and I'm kind of with you, Red. I don't know if I would have trusted the whole crab leg situation. Like, I've eaten sushi at an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet, and I felt like I was risking my life, kind of thing, So it was, wow. That sounds like the kind of story that should have happened in prison.
I'm not surprised because America is fat, and so people really get upset about food, and in the most ridiculous ways, with this just being an example of it. But I know food portion sizes are smaller, or they were smaller there, but you said that y'all are kind of catching up to us.
Yeah, it's getting pretty bad. It's on the news. You know, you get those shots of people walking around with their bellies hanging out, and like the UK obesity crisis. Yeah.
You know, I always wonder if any of those people ever see themselves, because you know they always do it from the back. So I wonder if you're like watching one day, you're like, God damn it, that's me. They're using me as an example. Like, that has to be embarrassing.
That's a moment, isn't it? That's like that's when you know there's a decision to be made.
I mean, if you're a reasonable person, you'll be like, well, I am fat. I guess that's on me.
Yeah, I am
Most
fat,
people are
but
not
until now I didn't realise it was national news.
That they were used as an example of a larger scale problem. But I've never been to the UK, but I've always and I mean, it's very obvious. I mean, our portions here are so big that you can't finish. Like, the concept of doggy bags and to go is because we get so much food at one time. And it's almost impossible to eat all of it, depending on where you go.
Yeah, it's and also when you order like each individual piece is way bigger than you'd expect in the UK. So you know, I had a family I knew growing up went out to the States and sort of travelled around a little bit, and they went into Church's Chicken, and they thought it was going to be like the fried chicken places in London, which are, you know, it's kind of the national dish of Southeast London is chicken shops, and you go in there and you get like a couple of pieces of chicken, chips and a drink.
The name of the really famous one?
Morley's or Favourite, the two big ones. Yeah. If you're from South East London, you're either Team Morley's or Team Favourite, and I was very much on the Morley's side of things. But yeah, we got loads. Chicken Cottage, Chicken Palace, Dallas Chicken, Texas Chicken, Halal Chicken. It's popular. There's a lot of chicken places, but
I don't know what they're doing to the chickens. The pieces be so big.
Yeah. It didn't fit on the table. So this guy went out there and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll get like a meal, whatever that comes with, which is, you know, chicken, biscuit, gravy, chips. Oh, you guys call them fries, right? So, you know, standard stuff." Then he went, "Oh, I'm on holiday. I'll get a couple of side plates." And put them on the side, and if I can't finish it, I can't finish it. And he said when they brought all the food to him for the amount he paid, he did not realise it was going to be that kind of a situation. And they had to bring out like a second little table and put it next to him, so there was a place to put it. So yeah, it's different. We still like fried chicken, we just don't eat the whole chicken. It's like just a couple pieces.
Nando's was the one that I was thinking of.
Oh, Nando's, yeah, that's people like that. I think I'm too much of an old man. I was already a dad and stuff by the time that all started coming out. But yeah, for the young lads, have a Nando's and then go out and get twatted.
There's some UK YouTubers, and I think that's where I heard of Nando's from.
Oh, the cheeky Nando's, yeah. I've been there a couple of times. It's okay.
Could be spicier.
There's a young British black kid that reviews chicken all throughout the UK.
The chicken connoisseur.
That's him? That's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to a video. I was like, damn, he know his damn chicken.
Yeah.
He reviews the Morley's actually. He reviews the Morley's just around the corner from where I grew up. That was like my main Morley's was the South Norwood Morley's, but there's one in Thornton Heath as well, which is very respectable. And I think it got like a 9 out of 10 on his thing. So I was happy with that. Yeah.
I guess I always look at chicken as like I don't know why, because it's whatever, but like as an American, very Southern American, because we love fried chicken.
Yeah, Britain steals recipes. That's what we do. Our national dish is chicken tikka masala. You know.
Oh, okay, that's an Indian dish.
Yeah. Well, no, it's based on Indian food, but it's invented in Britain, and it's what we do. We go abroad, like, oh, this is nice, and then just come home and steal it. I've got a collard greens recipe that has balsamic vinegar in it. You know, I'm just as bad as the rest of them.
You know, the thing is, to me, cultural appropriation or taking it is based on whether you're willing to give the person. Like, it's like plagiarism.
Yeah.
Like, cultural appropriation is plagiarism. It's taking it and trying to pass it as your own.
As opposed to giving
credit to who it came from. You know? Like, if I make a Chinese dish, I'm not going to say, I just decided to use these different seasonings to make this dish that I've never heard of or tasted in my life. And y'all should enjoy that Eddie's special chicken, knowing that it's damn well Chinese, versus saying, Chinese culture has really done something with all of these different seasonings and that they put together for this type of preparation for chicken. It's amazing. Like, that's the two different ones for me. Like, that's how I feel like I would cook everything I want. I'm gonna give everybody credit for it. I'm not going, because I make a tres leche. Which
will kill me. So
it will kill you. You can't eat it. But that's a Spanish food, and somebody Dominican came over here, and I was gonna make a translation. I was like, wait a minute, that's Latino culture. I can't make that shit. Well, just like if a Chinese person came here, I wouldn't make General Tso's chicken.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, but it'd be more because I'd feel like I wasn't doing it properly.
They gonna come over here. You made this Americanized ass shit.
But
I wouldn't want that.
It's the same with the London chicken shops. Like, if you go in there, it will say Southern chicken, as in Southern American chicken. But when you eat it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure if anyone from the South was actually in here with me, they'd be like, this is London chicken. Maybe it's inspired by the South, or someone saw a picture of Southern fried chicken one time and they decided to try and make it at home. But it's different stuff. They use vegetable oil instead of peanut oil, which is my biggest gripe. It comes out kind of greasy.
Yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but I just thought of this. What are some American stereotypes?
They're
do you mean like good ones, or I don't know?
Cole's bar. whatever, the worst of the worst.
Because I can tell you something.
It can't be many positive. I just don't see there being many positive.
Yeah, okay, everybody thinks we're assholes, but because we are. But I mean, the ones that we have about the UK are going to be stupid stuff like they drink a lot of tea.
We do. Yeah.
It's going to be instead of coffee.
Teeth.
Yeah, terrible teeth.
Yeah,
it's
fair.
just like the regular stuff. I'm just curious as to how we're viewed over there, though.
So, oh God. So I once.
We were black in America. They said we were white, we would get offended.
Yeah.
But we've been through the shits already.
I went to a stand-up gig, and the guy that was doing the set was making a point about stereotypes, and so he says, stereotypes are so ingrained. This is a room of however many people, however many hundred people, that I could give you a country, and I'll ask you to give me two things about them that are stereotypically true, and all of you will agree on the ones that you give. And he went round and he said, Irish, and they went, they drink a lot and they sound sexy, and everyone called out something vaguely to that effect, And he went to American, and it was the clearest one, and everyone said, fat and stupid, which I know. And it came out really quick, and I don't know if that's because it's legitimately because people think that, but certainly from the kind of stereotype for stereotype's sake, that's the predominant ones. But then, like you say, with teeth, these perfect white teeth, that's always a thing. It's like unnaturally white teeth.
We have some bad teeth, especially here in the South. We have some bad teeth.
Oh yeah.
In Britain, we got some pretty bad.
I did some research around it, and it was pretty much based off of from my understanding. I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the history of it was that dentistry was mostly made for parliament and royalty, and so dentistry wasn't really available at all to people that were poor. And so over a history of not having access to it and not finding it important and really not focusing on it, that's kind of how that happened. Is that?
Oh yeah. My grandmother was born in 1920, and she used to tell me stories of when she was a little girl in her tiny little remote Welsh village, which is probably, even for the time, pretty bad access to dentistry. But cases where like someone would die and it'd be like, oh, who's inheriting his dentures? Or you'd get to a certain age and just go, well, these are all screwed. I'll just yank them all out. Even the healthy ones, I'll just pull them all out of my head and wear some hand-me-down dentures from somewhere else because there's no point in keeping hold of them. So it was low on the totem pole.
You know, you can die from like a like if you don't get a root canal.
Yeah,
you can die from like
infection.
That infection will travel to your heart and kill you. Like,
oh yeah,
serious
I had
stuff.
a root canal.
It is.
Yeah, it was.
And they told me that.
That's
okay. Yeah, please cut this out of my head.
Exactly. Like pulled it. Like I had to get a root canal, and I wanted to preserve the tooth. I should have told him to pull it out.
Oh yeah.
But I told him to preserve it, and it seemed to be giving me more problems preserving it.
Pulled it out. Another stereotype is that y'all are really, really polite.
We have a veneer of being polite. Yes.
So y'all are like nice out and then talk shit about people.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that. We're just more.
Yeah, I think British people are better at being serious.
What we say outwardly is a lot more, I think, than you guys do. But we do have, like, there are things that we do keep. It may not seem like it, but, you know, there is, like, a limit to where we'll go, most of us. Some people.
We have a lot of extra words. I'll say that. And it comes from the classist history where there was this way you were supposed to address your betters. So if you were speaking to someone who was a class above you, you had to mind all your P's and Q's and you had to really ham it up a little bit. So I think a lot of the time when people come to the UK and they talk to people just day to day, they're surprised by how much people say please and thank you and sorry, excuse me, do you mind if, and all of that kind of stuff. So conversationally we're very polite, but you know we can be very rude. It's just a lot. It's quieter. Yeah.
I think I don't know of any other.
One
stereotypes that we may have about like the UK, other than they drink a lot of tea, bad teeth, they're polite, which is not a bad thing, I guess. Yeah, I think I can't think of anything else.
Have you heard of the comedian Reginald D. Hunter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw his stand up, and it was just interesting to me that he was from Georgia, but has been living in the UK for when he did the stand up for the last 10 years, so it's probably 13 or 14 years now. Mm-hmm. And just his perspective on UK life coming from a southern upbringing was very interesting.
Yeah, I like that guy. I think he's kind of like almost an American Hannibal Buress in terms of his delivery. He's very kind of laid back, and he's got good rolling laughs during his sets. Yeah. I do like it. Sorry, that's me talking like a comedian. He's very funny. Yeah.
I'm from Croydon.
Or where you're living at now, rather.
Oh. You noticed that I said it wrong. Yeah, British people don't know how to pronounce the places in the UK. So it's like the whole Worcester sauce, you know. I'm from.
No, I was like, I've been saying it wrong all this time. I thought it was me.
I am from Gloucester in the county of Gloucestershire, which is spelt Gloucester and Gloucestershire.
I was like, I've been saying it
it's
wrong
like
all this
we
time.
have Birmingham. We don't have Birmingham.
So we got time for a few more stories. Is Dr. Seuss books like Horton Hears a Who branded racist and problematic in new study.
Why is Horton Hears a Who racist?
This study reveals how racism spans across the entire Seuss collection while debunking myths about how books like Horton Hears a Who and The Sneetches can be used to promote tolerance, anti-bias, or anti-racism.
What?
In their February 2019 report, The Cat is Out of the Bag, Orientalism, Anti-Blackness, and White Supremacy in Dr. Seuss's children's book, They say that findings from this study promote awareness of the racist narratives and images in Dr. Seuss children's book and implications to the formation and reinforcement of racial biases in children. Let's see. Notably, every character of color is male. Males of color are only presented in subservient, exotified, or dehumanized roles. This also remains true in their relation to white characters. Most startling is the complete invisibility and absence of women and girls of color across Seuss' entire children's book collection.
What?
So how do we feel about this? How do we feel about
too much time on their hands? That's how I feel.
So is it really foreign to the idea that a person like Dr. Seuss that was writing books at the time he was writing them would have some racial predispositions?
No.
Or should we not look that deeply into it for things when we can find other meaning of it?
That's my thing, is that they had to really look deep. And I feel like I've seen, like, Cindy Lou is a girl. There have been female characters in some of the... I don't remember where Cindy Lou was from. There was a girl and a boy in what is it? Not the Cat. The Cat in the Hat. There's a girl and a boy. There's a brother and a sister. Like, I just feel like that's looking a little deep into... I don't know. The world has enough problems without us, like, going deep and trying to find other ones. That's just weird to me.
First of all, when I was a kid, we used to call him Dr. Swice. But as I've grown up, I found out I'm the only kid that ever did that. But in terms of like how it relates to, it's on the one hand, I want to say, the same kind of, you got too much time on your hands. You're trying to find an issue where there isn't one. But then again, I know that kind of thought process, and that kind of racist outlook is it's insidious, and it is important for those formative years to have an understanding of stories and reality and how things work that is consistent with the civilization and the society that you're living in. That's difficult. My instinct as a parent would be like, I'm at the point now where I'm looking at it and going, why don't we just chuck everything from my childhood in the bin? Because there's a lot of great stuff that's out for kids now.
I wasn't even, as a kid, I liked Shel Silverstein books. Light in the Attic, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Those were more of the like rhymey books that I liked. Dr. Seuss was just, we made green eggs and ham in kindergarten. I remember that after we read the book, and we thought it was so amazing, not realizing it was green food color. We were just like, she made green eggs and ham, and it was the most amazing thing ever.
Simplicity of children.
Because now I'd be like, why did you make this green? As an adult. But as a kid, I was like, this is amazing. I'm sure my mom got tired of hearing about that the whole time after I came home, because it's like they were green. Like, you don't understand. It was amazing.
Pass. I don't know. It goes to where my dilemma is, as a society, how far do we go back to retroactively apply our current standards to old things that exist? And I don't really know. I mean, there's some things that's dangerous enough where it's like, okay, Me Too has happened. We going back to find out what Bill Cosby been doing. But some things I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I guess a bunch of people could go their whole life without reading a study about Dr. Seuss being racist and it not change your life at all.
Yeah, it depends where you draw the line, I guess. I mean, like I started to feel a bit uncomfortable about the whole Mary Poppins thing when that came to light. It was a story that I knew well from when I was a kid, but
it had to be.
What happened with Mary Poppins?
Well, there's. I mean, the story broadly speaking of what Mary Poppins was, and Dick Van Dyke in it with his hilariously bad Cockney accent and everything. The new one came out, so they did a sequel to it, and it's about the two kids in it when they're grown up. And a lot of people started coming out from the the sort of liberal side of things and saying like, right, this is actually there's troubling undertones in this whole story, as can be proven if you look at the original version of Mary Poppins, and it turns out that the original version before Disney made the film, they took a load of language out that was pretty shocking in today's through a lens with today's eyes, which was centered around the little boy was misbehaving. So Mary Poppins took him on a tour of the world and introduced him to an Inuit family, an African family, Chinese family, I want to say, and then comes back to the UK, and that night he has this dream about being attacked by this Oriental guy with a sword and this black guy with a spear and this Inuit bloke with a knife, and he wakes up and he decides to be good from that point on, and they rewrote it in order to replace the ethnic stereotypes with animal kingdom, like animated animals, anthropomorphized animals, to sort of take that element out of it. And they did that, I mean, in the middle of the 20th century. It wasn't in the most enlightened times that they decided to make this difference. And so I was like intrigued, looked up the author, and a lot like Dr. Swice, there was a lot of she had a lot of opinions. and I'm not saying therefore I don't like this, I don't like the Mary Poppins film, but equally I don't think I'd be comfortable now showing it to my own children. If I had another baby and we were starting all over again, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe just steer clear of that one. So let's just watch something else. And I think that's, to me, the core of it. When you're talking about, is this racist? Do we have to retroactively apply our morals from today back to this old art? We can, but it's not. It's almost like we don't have to completely vilify the piece of art, but that equally doesn't mean we have to keep engaging with it in the same way. You can look back and say, oh, I got a load of good feelings and a lot of good teachings from the Cosby Show, but it doesn't mean I'm going to show it to my kids because he's a rapist. So
and how come? Yeah.
You have something else you want?
Nah, we can do one more story and then we'll call it quits.
Parents demand answers after mom finds video on YouTube kids with suicide instructions.
Oh, the Momo challenge.
Yes.
Is that it?
No,
That's different?
Mm-hmm. This, so the kid was watching it was a cartoon video. And then about halfway through, she said the footage was no longer cartoons, but footage of a man in sunglasses telling children how to slit their wrists. Hess, which the mom's name is Free Hess. Whatever. Hess says she reported the video for removal, and YouTube reportedly took a week to remove it from the site. Hess also alleges that she came across videos glorifying not only suicide, but sexual exploitation and abuse, human trafficking, gun violence, and domestic violence. YouTube, they responded and said, we appreciate people drawing problematic content to our attention and make it possible for anyone to flag a video. But so for anybody that doesn't know, YouTube Kids is like a version of YouTube, or it's like a extension of the app that you can use to keep your kids from being able to watch just like anything, and there's supposed to be some kind of funneling that happens where it's only like, kids cartoons and stuff that's appropriate for kids, but apparently what this person did purposefully, you would have to do this, is started out with a cartoon video and then in the middle of it put some stuff about slitting your wrist, which is weird and creepy.
Have you been keeping up with Momo?
I haven't. I know what Momo, I've seen what Momo looks like, but I don't know what the hell it is.
Well, Momo was just this creepy figure that supposedly pops up in videos and tells kids to do stuff to themselves, harm themselves and stuff. kind of similar to what you're saying, and it's that creepy picture that you've been seeing.
Yeah,
it's that person doing it, and I'm always skeptical about stuff like that. I was like, okay, whatever, big deal. But a post on one of my friends' pages said that they asked their kid if they knew who this was, and they said, yeah, they showed up in some videos. And I asked the kid on my caseload, and he said the same thing.
That he seen Momo.
Yeah, that Momo showed up. Matter of fact, when I showed him the picture, it terrified the shit out of him, and he started almost crying. And then I was like, "Where have you seen this?" And he said, "In some of the videos that I watch." And he said it pops up randomly sometimes. So it's like people have been intentionally uploading this harmful content
people are sick.
for kids to come across, and problematic. And it's problematic.
I go back to human beings suck that I said in the beginning. It's why you have to be careful about what you allow your kids to watch, especially when it's coming from like the internet. You just never know. And there are sick people that will take advantage of something like YouTube Kids, where they know parents are going to be less likely to monitor it because it's a platform made specifically to be safe for kids to watch stuff. And so parents' guards are going to be a lot more let down for that than if they put it on regular YouTube. Which, again, what kind of sicko do you have to be to come up with that concept?
I was just saying that it is really awful that people are putting this stuff on YouTube Kids. That said, I think a bigger issue is parents of a certain generation maybe not understanding how the internet works, and this expectation that there should be someone looking at all of these videos and making sure, and you're just thinking, look, the videos are being uploaded so much faster than it would be possible to watch even if all of their employees were sat staring at YouTube videos all day long. It's just not possible. Part of it's gonna have to be a computer looking through things, and that computer is sometimes gonna make a mistake. It's gonna get better over time, but how do you define something that's harmful to a child? How do you teach a computer to look for that? It's really hard. So you've got to take a bit of parental responsibility and teaching your kid what the dangers of using the internet are, even around YouTube and stuff like that, and be understanding what those dangers are yourself, so that you know how to kind of meter things and how to talk about it. But it definitely sucks. And the whole Momo thing actually started as a bit of media hype around this suicide game that didn't make any sense. It was meant to be like, on WhatsApp you'll get a message from Momo telling you to do some kind of dare, and then it will slowly get worse and you'll end up killing yourself. And they erroneously conflated this with a couple of unfortunate suicides that had occurred around the world and said, this was a result of Momo, and it wasn't in reality. And then the internet trolls got hold of that and went, I know, let's do Momo screaming insanely into the middle of videos that we know kids will watch, because people are pretty trash when you really get down to it.
They really are. It's like the whole Slender Man thing. There was a case where two girls here convinced their friend to come into the woods with them, and they stabbed her trying to I guess sacrifice her so that the Slender Man would come and get them. I don't know.
And take them away to live with him or something.
And so thankfully the little girl survived. But I mean, imagine your friends. It's like with Remy, and you saying that he would be getting choked and be like, "Yay, it's okay." You could go to hang out with a friend, people that you consider to be your friends, and then they just start stabbing you for no reason other than that they want this fictional character to come and take them away to live with him.
Yeah, and they full on tried to kill her. She didn't, they didn't stop. She just didn't they leave her there, and she had to crawl to the road or something horrific. It was
I mean, parents have to be very careful about the thing, and you're right. It's about them not. This generation, I think, because they've always had the internet, don't necessarily think about what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't have it. We didn't get the internet till I don't even know, and it was dial-up, so it really wasn't even worth use because it was very frustrating. But I've seen as an adult how shitty the internet can be and some of the things that can be on it. And so for parents to not be a little bit more cautious about what they're, just sitting your kid in front of YouTube for hours, you don't know what they're going to see. There's not a way for you to know that if you're not monitoring it.
Yeah, and unfortunately a lot of parents do. And, you see it because it's easy, I guess. You get the iPad and you chuck it down and they sit there and they don't bother you for a real long time. But and it's awkward having these these conversations. When my stepdaughter was getting older, we had to sit her down at one point and say, listen, if you're curious about anything to do with human reproduction, please ask us, do not ask the internet. never go on there and type it in. And she's a young girl. She said, well, why not? And I went, well, it's because the things that you'll find are kind of like Hollywood. So in the same way, if you go and see an action film and you see a policeman and he's firing a gun out of a window and involved in huge explosions and he's falling off of buildings and stuff, if you did that in real life, you'd hurt yourself and you would not have a very good time. But if all you were going on was that film, you would think that's what being a policeman's all about. Well, when it comes to sex, that's what the internet is. It's the Hollywood version. And so we don't want you to know about that because you'll be terrified, disgusted. It'll be a really bad time. So just ask us if you have any questions. And historically, that's a conversation you can put off if you want to. As a parent, you can just go, well, I'm not going to teach him about sex until it becomes... But now you kind of have to, because... And it's the same with all of it. You have to go, well, don't talk to people on the internet. Why? Because they're grown-ups, might be pretending to be kids. Why? Right, okay, I can either now explain this to you, which is going to be already uncomfortable, or you're going to be curious, which means you will check the second my back is turned. So it's a harder time.
It is. I had a kid that I forgot what he was Googling, but he came across furries and became addicted to like furry porn and had to we had to refer him out to that's a very specific issue. But it was something completely non-sexual related that he was Googling, but like furries. He was introduced to furries that way, or furrying, whatever it is.
Yeah, and now he wants to dress up like a squirrel and fuck it. I mean...
It's like as a parent, once it was discovered, it's like, what do you say now?
Yeah. There's nothing in a parenting book about that. No one ever sat a parent down in the 50s and said, well, if your kid wants to dress up like a squirrel when they fuck people, because an adult that you don't know taught them about it, this is what you do. It's like, no, that never happened. That never happened before. Yeah. So yeah, it's I think for the parents' part, the main thing is it's about having uncomfortable conversations that you never thought you were going to have. But wow, yeah, furry stuff that would have come out of left field.
It did, because the poor parents didn't know anything about furry, so they were introduced to it through their kid. I forgot how old this kid was, because it was when I was an intern. But they didn't even know what it was, and so they got a quick lesson, and it's traumatic for them as well.
What would you think? Oh, oh, just go on little Jimmy's computer. Oh no, he's been looking at adult sites. Oh no, it's what?
What the hell is this? Have you never seen it? But I wouldn't even. I think that may have been my introduction to it. I don't think I knew what it was.
Would you worry that it was like bestiality? But then it would be, well, no, because it's not like this is because in the 7th there was that DVD that you were saying when you were a kid about right. So it's not that. I mean, that at least was vaguely in the public consciousness. People are aware of that. It's like no, this is someone in a wolf suit they made themselves out of a sofa somewhere. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I had no idea. That was my introduction to it, because my supervisor said furrying, and I was like, what the hell is that? And she told me, and I was like, really? People do that? Why? Isn't that hot?
Yeah. When you
I just feel like you'd be sweating a lot inside of that suit.
It's
Maybe.
Maybe it's more popular in cold states. I don't know.
I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, look, Michael, I appreciate you for joining the show.
Were you gonna ask him how he found us?
Oh, yeah, before you go, so how did you end up finding us anyway?
This is going to be like the worst possible answer to your question, but I cannot remember. It was because I was listening to you guys a long time before I first started to write in. So I just, maybe almost a year before my first message to you guys, I was listening. So it's been for quite some time, and I don't know. I guess I was just down a clickhole one day, and I was listening to different podcasts. But where I used to live over in Swindon, I used to have an hour walk into work in the morning and an hour back, and you were on my playlist of podcasts to listen to. And then when that podcast listening time got brought all the way back down because I work from home now, you were the one of 2 podcasts that survived. So yeah, that's I don't know.
That's awesome, man.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We appreciate you for taking the time out. I know the time difference is off as well. What time is it there?
It's 8:30.
It's 2:36.
Yeah.
It's about time for dinner.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you for taking the time. I definitely appreciate you for listening. Next time you're on, we'll have a better source of communication because I don't know how this is going to sound.
There's going to be a lot of editing, I'd imagine. So I apologise for that.
No apology on your part. We'll find out a better way to do it in the future if you would join us again at some point.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate the invite.
Appreciate the invite.
But it's so much fun because it's one thing to have your letters, but being able to actually have a back and forth conversation has been cool.
Yeah, likewise. I'm often find myself talking to my headphones, so it's nice. You can respond now.
Oh, say what?
I say a lot of the time when I'm listening to the podcast, I'll say things out loud to you guys, or not out loud, but maybe in my head because that makes me sound insane. But so yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, for your time, and that'll be it until we come to the next conversation.
We out.
Holla.